The 49ers say that Brock Purdy is their guy, but their latest contract offer or reported contract offer may say otherwise. We'll get into it all on today's Gold Diggers podcast, brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Diggers podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. She is Michelle Majuk. It is Friday. We have Brock Purdy contract news. Oh, it's never boring with the 49ers.
Hey, y'all. This is, got some news about Brock Purdy. The first offer may have not been the best, but that's just how the NFL rolls, right? They like to just make their players really upset. It's an interesting concept that they go about.
I did not expect this, especially from 49ers beat writers, because let's be honest, they're not exactly in the breaking news type business. And I'm sure this is out there for a reason, and we can talk about all of that stuff. We'll get into that because Tim Kawakami has the article in the San Francisco Standard about Brock and some interesting things about Robert Saleh as well. Plus, Michelle has a nice little top 5 list for us, which I'm very excited to get into about the 49ers offseason to-do list. So we'll get into all of that, but we'll start with the Brock Purdy stuff. Here's what Tim Kawakami wrote in the San Francisco Standard. Quote, I heard from a plugged-in NFL source this week that the Niners and Purdy's camp are indeed feeling like there won't be fireworks on the way to an eventual deal. Okay, that's good. I've also heard generally that the framework might be a little different than some other recent quarterback deals. I suspect this means the 49ers could be pitching a shorter term, lesser guarantee deal compared to the full commitment deal signed by Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and others over the last few years. Will Purdy and his agent be happy with that? Assuredly, there'll be negotiations. Nobody makes their best offer right off the bat. It might take time. I have thoughts on this, Michelle, but I want to hear your reaction first because I want to know if your reaction is the same as mine.
Well, I don't know. This is not going to be your same reaction, but I was just thinking from reading this, wouldn't it be so crazy if they just tried, if any team just tried and said, this is the best offer. Like, this is what we truly believe you are worth. This is the top that we'd like to go. We are giving you everything that we think you deserve. And they just saw how it happened, right? Without making their players so angry to begin with being like so disrespected. However, I think if they're going the shorter route and less guarantees, then they don't believe in Brock Purdy as much as they're trying to say that they do.
Yes, that is exactly my reaction to this as well, right? If you have to say, well, we can't sign you to a long-term deal like other quarterbacks, and we can't pay you the guaranteed money that we're paying other quarterbacks, how much do you really believe in this guy in the first place? Should you really be giving that guy a new contract? That was exactly the response I had. I don't know if I'm like rubbing off on you after all these shows together because now we're over 100 or what it is, but you nailed it.
I mean, if you don't want to give a guy a long-term contract, then you don't believe in him, right? Like if they truly believed in Brock Purdy as their franchise quarterback, you lock that thing in. I mean, didn't Patrick Mahomes get like a 100-year deal? I mean, they were like, right. We were like right away, they will go forever. Josh Allen got a super long deal right away. Like these guys get long deals because they don't want to have to renegotiate and pay you again in 3 years. Like if they feel like they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy more in 3 years, then they would be giving the 5-6 year contract, right? They don't want to have to give him more in 3 years. So they might not have as much belief in him than they're trying to say. I do still think like Brock Purdy is their guy. I do think he can be a franchise quarterback. I think he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I mean, he was literally an overtime away. I do think he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback when he was overtime away at 24 years old. But it does seem like the team itself is saying that they're nervous about this contract.
And I just think it's really interesting because he's our guy. We love Brock Purdy. They just said it in the post-season press conference. John Lynch said like, hey, Brock Purdy's our guy. Kyle said, I want Brock to be here as long as I'm here. It's like, well, then why are we hearing that you may offer a shorter term deal? Because you're right. That's a great point that you bring up. You're going to have to pay him way much more than you would normally have to pay him if he has a short-term deal, and then you got to give him another contract. If you lock it in, you lock it in. So everything should point to the 49ers signing Brock right away, as fast as possible, to as long a term contract as possible, because that is the cheapest option ultimately in the long run. Tim Kawakami is saying that may not be the case. And I like his line too that he put there in the end. Oh, how will Brock Purdy and his agent, are they going to be happy with that? No. I mean, they might like a shorter term contract because then he gets to hit the market again, but they're not going to like non-guaranteed part of that deal. No, not at all.
They're not going to be able to do both. It can't be short, short years and not guaranteed. That's not going to work out. If they want to go short, it's going to have to be guaranteed. And honestly, a guy like Brock Purdy, why not? Like, if you truly believe in yourself, it's not even just a guy like Brock Purdy, any quarterback, if you believe in yourself, you want those shorter year contracts. Like, look at Kirk Cousins. He's never taken, that long-term deal. He always bets on himself. And this dude has made so much money in his career. Kirk Cousins has. If Brock Purdy wants to go that route, I would totally understand it. Be like, yeah, give me the 3-year deal. I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to earn my next one. I'm going to make way more money in 3 years from now. Because look at Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Right now, they are a steal at their current cost because they signed such a long-term deal. So if I'm a quarterback, I want that 3-year deal.
The length I don't think would bother him, but like you said it, if it's going to be short, it's going to be fully guaranteed, which I don't have a problem with, by the way, because if you're signing Brock Purdy, like if you sign Brock Purdy to a 3-year fully guaranteed deal, if you sign Brock Purdy to a 5-6-year deal, those first 3 years are essentially going to be guaranteed anyway. So it doesn't really matter. I would be fine with that. LOL Heyman says the Niners have all the leverage in this negotiation with Brock. He doesn't have leverage like Ayuk did in his negotiations. I totally disagree.
Yeah,
when you're a quarterback, you have massive leverage. Literally, right now, the 49ers don't have any other quarterbacks because Josh Dobbs is a free agent and Brandon Allen's a free agent. When you're a quarterback, you have leverage.
Yeah, and if they don't get him under contract, I mean, it's going to mess with OTAs. It's going to mess with you need your starting quarterback at all these things, and you need them fully engaged right off the bat. And they also, I mean, he's going to be the most expensive guy on the team. They need to figure that out before free agency to know what guys they can sign. Like, I don't think he has a ton of leverage in the way where you can ask for the world because he hasn't put up that production this last year. But he still does have a ton of leverage, and it's way more than Ayuk. Like, the team was willing to go to the last week before the season because it was just a wide receiver, right? Like, they cannot do that with a quarterback. So Brock does have way, way more leverage in this situation, especially more than Ayuk.
And the Niners blinked with Ayuk, as they blink with all these guys. They blinked with Trent. They blinked with Bosa. They blinked with Debo. Like, they blinked with every single one of these guys. And, they do have leverage. They don't seem willing to use all of it. Like, the 49ers could have said to Brandon Ayuk, no, dude, you're not a free agent. We're not going to pay you. Either play for us or don't play. Like, that, the team has that leverage. Now, they never want to exercise that, but they could have done that. So it's not only a matter of, do you have leverage? It's a matter of, do you have leverage and are you willing to use it? And that is different. Like, we've seen some quarterbacks use their leverage to the fullest and say, like, hey, I'm not going to play for you, trade me or whatever. Some guys like Russell Wilson didn't want to be the bad guy when he was trying to get out of Seattle. So it took him like a couple years longer than he probably would have liked to get out of there because he didn't want to fully exercise all the leverage that he had. And I don't think the 49ers are going to do that. And they're certainly not going to do it with Brock Purdy, especially coming off a 6-11 year. Like, this was supposed to be the get right off season, right? The good vibes off season. You fired Sorensen. You fired Brian Schneider. You got Saleh back. Don't wreck that now.
Again, like, I still believe they're Super Bowl contenders. I still think they're right there. Like, just because of a really down year, going into this next year, they should be right back in the mix. They obviously can't have as many injury. The injury luck this year was insanely bad. Like, that can't, if that happens again, yeah, they're going to be a losing team again. And the defense was incredibly bad and lost them a lot of games, and a lot of decisions made by Kyle Shanahan lost some games. Brock Purdy lost some games. Like, I don't want to say he didn't, but it was a bunch of things all in one. The show you did yesterday, I haven't listened to it all, but fantastic. Go listen to the show on Thursday. Fantastic breakdown of Robert Saleh. I loved it so much. And it made me really excited to see what he could do with this defense this upcoming year.
Yeah, I sat down with Johnny Dales from the Johnny Dales Football Academy, and he brought out the clicker, and we literally broke down like some of the crazy third down calls that Robert Saleh has had and how he challenges an offense at every single level of the defense. And honestly, like he brings it up during the show. It was very Steve Spagnuolo-ish, really, with what they've done and getting free rushers and stuff like that. Please go and check that out. To be fair, it works better on YouTube because you can actually see the film. It is a podcast, but it's on YouTube as well. Don't do it now.
This is our
time, but definitely check that out. Now, I saw a comment from Nick Eller who says, how is this a topic when we have a report that they are aligned on the contract? So I want to be clear. Let's present everything here. The Tim Kawakami article does say, I received no questions about Brock Purdy's contract situation with the Niners, which is the true pivot point of the offseason. Clearly, Niners fans don't seem too worried about this negotiation. I think that's an accurate take. This probably will get done, but the timing is important too. The Niners and Purdy don't want this stretching into OTAs and minicamp and forcing Purdy to make a decision, yada, yada, yada. That's all well and good. And, I'm sure there's good vibes, but it's like when you move into a dorm in college. The first day, the first week, everything's good. Everybody's good. We all promise to wash our dishes and put them away and not be messy, and that's cool. And then you live together, and then you find out what it's really like. It's all great that the Niners and Brock are on the same page right now. Everything can change with that first contract offer. And the other stuff that Tim said in this column, which we just told you about, makes me worry a lot more than just seeing, oh, well, they're aligned right now, so it's all good.
Yeah, and the rest of the article pretty much says that they're not so much aligned, right? That the 49ers want to give him the shorter contract. Now, maybe that's what Brock wants, but also he brings up the guarantees might not be what Brock wants. And, the first offer is not going to be what he's looking for. So it's going to take time for whatever reason. I don't know what takes so long with these contracts. I guess maybe I'm just delusional thinking that they could get done quicker. Just sit in the room and figure it out. Everyone get in the room. Both agents or the team, the agent, the player, just sit there and negotiate face to face until you figure out something. I just feel like it could get done in a day. I really do.
It really should, because again, you're not pulling numbers out of thin air. There's a market for all of this. There's a ballpark. There's, we can see what Mahomes' contract is. We could see Dak is at the top of the market right now. I think getting 60. You can clearly work it out. I did see another thing from Dan Graziano of ESPN that projected the 49ers to sign Brock to, I think it was 4 years, 196, sort of similar to the Daniel Jones contract with a little bit of a bump, was essentially what they said. So that was 4 years, 160 million. I was trying to look up like the nitty gritty of the Daniel Jones contract. It was basically, according to Pro Football Talk, when you boil it all down, 3 years, 112 million. So you would bump that up a little just for inflation and because it's the next deal. And I could easily live with that as a 49er fan.
Yeah, and Brock's not going to come close to accepting that. So that's a pointless start.
It depends on what he thinks. Does he think, hey, I want to get the most I can get because I've earned it and, all of that stuff, and which he's completely entitled to believe? Or does he think, hey, I've been making no money. I'm going to have a contract offer of, 196, 200 million, whatever it is. I don't care if it's the top of the market. I'm tired of playing on no money. I want to get my life situated.
This is what I said to you earlier. And you were like, no way. He's not going to take a friendly deal. And he came out and said, or maybe his agent did say, we're not taking we're not being friendly here and taking a smaller deal. After last year, when teams paid Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, $55 million a year. I'm sorry, Brock's not going to say, you know what? I will take the 40 million. I'll take the Daniel Jones deal where the team was able to just throw him out in 5 seconds because the deal was so pointless that it didn't even matter. Why would he take that when his numbers are far better than Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love? Tua's year was super down this year too, but they both have been efficient in their systems for the most part. But he's not going to take less than $50 million a year. It's not happening.
No, I don't think he's going to take less than 50. 4 years, 200 would be 50. right?
It matters. Yeah, it matters how much guaranteed.
Yeah. Now I fully expect Brock's agent to try and get as much as possible. Of course, that's his job. But like there will come a point where the 49er, like they'll offer a first contract. That'll get rejected, of course, because that's just how negotiations work. And then there'll be another contract offer. And Brock's agent will present it to Brock because you have to. And then he'll say to Brock, I'm sure, like, hey, I'm pretty sure I can get you more than this. Just give me a little time. And then the question will come down to Brock and he'll say, let's say it's getting close to phase 1 of OTAs. Because remember, Brock said, I would like to have this contract done by then. Is Brock going to sit there and say, hey, should I push it? Should I miss the first week of OTAs or whatever to try and get 5 million more, 10 million, whatever that number may be, right? To squeeze more juice from that orange. Or do I say, forget it. It's not going to really change my life that much more either way. Sign this deal and let's go.
And this might be the situation where Brock, his money, whatever I want to say here, like him not making a ton of money in his career, at least playing, his sponsors probably making more money than his playing time. Maybe that's the point where he starts to get scared a little bit, right? Like, let's just get this done. I want to get this done. I want to make sure I have this in writing. I want to make sure my life is changed, because no matter what this number is, his life is going to be changed forever. And I could see him at that point being like, I don't need to squeeze out another couple $1 million. Fine. Like, let's just get this done. I want to get to OTAs. Like, I don't want to mess this up. And I could see him where that's where the situation comes in play, where he hasn't made much, where he's not just trying to squeeze out every last dime. So, but maybe he has bigger kahunas than I'm giving him credit for, though. Maybe he won't be so scared. I did see a comment that said, well, he's still under contract for a year. So if he doesn't accept, cool, play $1 million and keep pushing it. He will not play. He can make more money off of sponsors or doing something else than $1 million of putting your body at risk and never getting that big contract. He will not play this year under his current contract. He will sit out.
Well, that's what goes back to what I'm saying, like using all the leverage that you have. Will he? Not a lot of guys in the history of the NFL actually sit out, at least for the whole year.
The 49ers better have a good plan for a backup if that's their plan, because he won't be there all of training camp. He will not step foot. And you want him his first time stepping foot on the field is week 1, even if he says, okay, fine, I'll play. Like, no, it's not happening. And he's going to play so scared then. Like, we're talking about this year that it probably was in his head a lot, like the money. Every chance he'd try to push it, he's probably thinking, I need to earn this contract. And you want him to then play again under $1 million, and he's going to play so scared to get hurt that he'll never get his contract. Like, no, come on, guys. We need to not be so it's not your money. This is what is so weird to me with fans. It's not your money. It's the billionaires' money. Let them pay. He's proven it. He's deserved it. This is so silly.
Well, and I feel like the holdout thing, that's the mutually assured destruction option, right? The Niners can say, hey, you're under contract. You either play for us at what you signed for or you don't play at all. They could do that. Now, that would torpedo their season, but they could do that. They're within their rights to do that. Brock is also within his rights to say, hey, I'm not playing. I'm using the tools in my tool belt, including a holdout, to get as much money as I could possibly get, and I'm going to sit out until I get that money. That's not going to help Brock Purdy, in terms of the fans and all of that. And, he's not going to play. So that option is there for both sides. I don't think either one is going to take it. I think what's much more likely is what you described, where like, hey, they send the offer and Brock decides I could get a few more, but I'm not going to push it. And then we can put the narrative out there that I'm intentionally taking less money to allow the 49ers to have more room to sign more other guys, right? That's the whole PR part of it. You can throw that spin out there. The Niners can talk about how grateful they are to Brock Purdy and all that stuff. I could easily see that happening as well.
At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a 4-year, $220 million offer. Did I do that math right? So $55 million a year. Mm-hmm. And the guarantees will not be anything insane. I think it's like the first 2 years maybe fully guaranteed, and then off of that, but a little bit lower going from there. But that's my guess. 4 years, $55 million a year.
It'll be like the first 2 years fully guaranteed, and then the third year becomes fully guaranteed in April of the second year of the contract. You know how they always kind of do that and put those little trap doors in there. The key will be when it gets done. we've talked repeatedly about getting it done before the start of the new league year so that you can get your free agency ducks in a row.
We will see very few free agency signings if they don't have the Brock Purdy deal done. They're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to know what their cap space looks like. They're not going to know where, like, how to sign guys and where to move stuff and where to move like their payments. Like, it's going to be so hard for them if they don't have the Brock Purdy deal done by then.
Which is why you have to make your decision on this early, which it should be made by now, whether you're going to pay him or not, because of all of that stuff. And you decide, hey, we're not paying him. Well, then you do know sort of the structure of things because you're going to know what Brock makes. Now, you may have to find another quarterback. That's the scary part about that. But you have to have a plan and you have to lay it out. And we'll see if the Niners can execute that plan. I also would like to see them restructure or give George Kittle a new contract. Give Fred Warner a new contract. You could clear up a lot of cap room if you do both of those things. Neither guy has any guaranteed money left in the deal, so I'm sure they'd be open to that, obviously, as well. So there are things that they can do to get their ducks in a row. I just thought that was really interesting from Kawakami talking about that, and people were questioning him on Twitter, and his response was kind of, well, hey, I was the first guy to say that the Niners could get Christian McCaffrey, which is true, because I remember before that trade happened, Tim had a whole article about how, hey, this is really possible, and here's how McCaffrey would fit in the offense and all that stuff. And I said at the time, like, Tim's not writing this article if he doesn't know what's up, because the Niners the Niners beat doesn't really break news. So for them to be doing this tells me that's pretty likely. And then like a day later, the trade went through. So for Tim to throw this out there, I mean, he said he's heard from a plugged in source. That's who would be plugged into the Brock Purdy negotiations. Well, Brock's agent would be one and the 49ers would be the other. So I feel like somebody is putting this out there. I don't know which side is throwing it out there, but clearly I think this is a real thing. And we'll see how Brock's side reacts to a less than, regular, let's say, quarterback contract.
And it's not gonna be done, I don't think, in February. Even it probably, if it does get done before free agency, it will legit be that weekend before free agency. Like, I think it's gonna come down the wire. I do think it happens before free agency. If it's going to be a clear cut that this is going to get done without getting ugly, it's going to get done right before free agency. I think if they don't get it done before free agency, I think it's going to start to get ugly, and we can start to see him missing OTAs and all that stuff. Like, if it's reasonable where both people are on kind of the same track, it will get done by March. I don't know what the New Year League is. It's normally like the 13th or around there. I don't know what that Monday is. It'll get done by there if they are on the same track.
Which that's a little scary too, because we know how the free agency stuff works. They have the quote unquote legal tampering days, and then free agency opens and boom, contract. Like, the contracts are all hammered out immediately. So like, if you're the 49ers, can you really wait till the day before? Because like we talked about, you won't be able to get your ducks in a row until that happens. So it's a test for this front office, for sure. It's a test for John Lynch. It's a test for Parag Marathe. It's a test to see if the Niners have learned from their mistakes, is really what it is. Because whether you sign Brock Purdy or not, the trap that has crushed them these past few seasons is the uncertainty. The uncertainty has really affected everything. It's affected the players. It's affected the team. And so that's the mistake that they need to change. They need to remove the uncertainty, and we'll see if they do. I haven't seen anybody else talk about the contract. I haven't seen any other Niners beat writers chime in on this. So we'll sit and wait.
We will. And it'll be a good another month before we hear anything.
Joe Tiz says Brock and 3 firsts for Burrow. I would do that, but there's actually another Cincinnati Bengal that we're going to talk about a little later in the show. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's talk about it right now. I was just sitting around minding my own business yesterday, and I saw a tweet from, I think it was Dan Orlovsky, because they were discussing T. Higgins. Obviously, the Bengals need to make a decision on T. Higgins and what they're going to do and how much they're going to pay him and all that stuff. He's obviously a very good player. And Orlovsky quote tweeted a video of him on NFL Live talking about the situation. And then he just threw out some teams where T. Higgins might be interested. And it was Washington, the Chargers, the Patriots, and the 49ers. And Dan writes, too many teams that will want him and pay him. And I'm sitting there, Michelle, like, what? Wait a minute. The 49ers, like, where did that come from?
they can't afford him, right? I mean, T. Higgins would be amazing get. I mean, Brandon Ayuk skill set with T. Higgins skill set, that would be a dynamic duo. It would be so incredible. T. Higgins is one of the best contested catch guys. He's just a really good player. He's a deep threat as well. He can catch touchdowns like no other. I would love T. Higgins to be a 49er. I just don't see a world where they can afford him unless they did move on from Brock Purdy. And then who's throwing T. Higgins the ball?
Yeah, I didn't even, it never even entered like my head at all. Like I just didn't consider it. I figured we're settled at wide receiver. They just spent a first round pick last year at wide receiver. And you may say Ricky Pearsall didn't blow you away, but he certainly didn't do anything the rookie year to make you think he's a complete bust. Like I think we're all going into year 2 thinking like, let's see what he's got. There could be something here. Technically, you also have Jacob Cowing, although they didn't really use him at all. So I was just like, man, that's really weird. T. Higgins. All right, Dan Orlovsky. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he doesn't. Then later in the day yesterday, Michael Lombardi was on the Pat McAfee show and they were talking about T. Higgins. And out of nowhere, he's like, man, look, the 49ers would be perfect for T. Higgins. Can you imagine with all the weapons that they have there? You put people around T. Higgins so he is not the primary focus and he could really blow up. I think 49ers are a great spot. And I'm like, do people not know who's on the roster? Like, what is going on?
He's going to make at least $30 million a year. I mean, when Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's really good, but he got that $30 million, and Brandon Ayuk got $30 million. Jalen Waddle's at $28 million. Like, I'm sorry, T. Higgins is getting $30 million a year. I don't see how that works. But I mean, if they could figure it out, yeah, it'd be absolutely amazing. But they have a lot of defensive holes, right? And I don't know if wide receivers is thought that they need to be spending on. They need to be fixing. They get Robert Saleh, but now they need to also get him some players that can help him fix this defense.
We do know this because I know a lot of people are talking about the offensive line. They need to fix the offensive line. Kyle Shanahan has basically told the 49ers and told the world, like, we're fine trying to get just average dudes on the offensive line. If it comes down to the choice between getting another average offensive lineman or a guy that can score touchdowns, the Niners go with the guy that can score touchdowns. Clearly, we have seen it. Chris Forster just talked about it after this most recent draft when they drafted Pooney and didn't really spend any significant capital on anybody else, and we were all freaking out. Kyle's philosophy is, I want guys that can rush the passer, and I want guys that can score touchdowns. And when it comes to offensive line, we'll just try and not suck. It's pretty much the philosophy. So I don't think we can just rule this out completely.
The offensive line and defensive line is like so important in the NFL. And I think it's underrated. And I don't get why Shanahan would say, I just need guys that can score touchdowns. Like, you also need an offensive line that's way better. You need a defensive line that's way better. I'm not saying you need to go elite. You don't need to pay up for every offensive lineman, but you do need better pieces than like the worst center, the worst left guard. Like, you can't have the worst of them, right? You got to find some average guys, especially in the middle there. You can't have them all lined up next to each other, stinking it up. So hopefully he goes in trying to fix both of the lines. I mean, that's really the key this year.
JCG 1987 says, sign Dalton, let Brock Purdy walk. Just kidding. I hate contract season. I mean, it's frustrating because generally these things tend to drag on. So we end up saying the same thing over and over again. But this one is clearly important. Like the Brandon Ayuk deal, we talked about it. Ultimately, in the grand scheme of how you build a team, it's not the most important thing. Quarterback is. Like this one, it will deserve the time that we're going to end up spending on it.
It will. And I don't think it'll be this whole summer long situation where we're getting so sick of it and it's everyday thing. If it is, then the 49ers just don't know how to negotiate contracts. Like, if that's the case, like, we need to give up on this team ever negotiating contracts, not ever talking about again, because then we just know it's not going to happen until the end of August. And there's no point of discussing if they can't even get this one done.
I want to spend time talking about how there's Instagram videos of Brock Purdy working out with Brandon Ayuk in the offseason and working out with Ricky Pearsall in the offseason because they're both in Arizona, I believe. I know that Brock goes to Jacksonville. I don't actually know if Pearsall. They're close to each other in the offseason. I know that. I'm not sure where in the country they are. But that's what I want to see. I want to see like Brock Purdy in the lab doing that kind of stuff instead of worrying about the stupid contract.
It'd be so nice for him just to have a normal season of his career.
Yeah, I would sign up for normal, please. Can you, and I know I'm springing this on you, so I apologize. Like, let's just say craziness did happen. They trade Deebo Samuel and they do go get T. Higgins. Like, how big of a boost do you think that would be for the Niners?
Because I mean, it would be insane. I mean, T. Higgins, I think, is a top tier wide receiver in this league. I think he's a top talent. Deebo Samuel can't do anything but force some missed tackles if he really, really tries. Like if he wants to try that day, then he can force some missed tackles after a short catch. It would be a completely different. I mean, they're completely different skill sets all around. T. Higgins would actually offer defenses would be scared of him deep. He would offer a lot more space to Ayuk and to Kittle, like to pretty much everyone. And then T. Higgins doesn't need space to catch balls. Like he's a great contested catch guy. I would love T. Higgins. Now he has had trouble staying healthy in his career, and I know you hate that, but he never misses like a huge chunk of time. It's always just like little injuries that kind of make him miss a little bit of time.
2,000-yard seasons in his career. You could see his numbers if you're watching on the stream. 10 touchdown catches last season.
And remember, he has to compete with Jamar Chase too.
Is he competing with Jamar Chase, or is he benefiting from all the coverage going to Jamar?
T. Higgins had his biggest games of his career, the stretch that Jamar Chase missed. T. Higgins went off when Jamar Chase missed that stretch. When was it? The 2022 end of season, I think. So he completely showed he doesn't need Chase there, I think.
And here's another thing I like about it. T. Higgins is big, 6'4", 220. I do like the idea of Brock Purdy having a bigger wide receiver. Jennings is one of the Niners' bigger receivers. We've seen Brock be willing to throw up some 50-50 balls to him, which I like generally because I think you're not always going to be able to scheme guys totally open. Sometimes if you need a big play, if it's one-on-one coverage, you chuck it up there and you trust your guy to protect you from throwing an interception. So I wouldn't hate that if the Niners did get another big wide receiver. Again, I really don't think this is going to happen, but the Niners do like shoot for the stars when it comes to transactions. They're willing to do some things that we potentially think are crazy. They literally tried to trade for Aaron Rodgers after giving up 3 first-round picks. So like they're willing to at least investigate crazy stuff. And maybe they've gotten, maybe McAfee, or I should say Lombardi and Dan Orlovsky have heard like rumors of them potentially doing that. I don't know. It just seems weird that 2 national guys on the same day both talked about the Niners and T. Higgins.
But even if the 49ers trade Deebo Samuel, they'll still owe him quite a bit, don't they? I don't expect Deebo to be on this team. I think they'll just suck up the money they'll lose, but that will still be a guy they're paying at wide receiver. So I don't understand how they're going to do it. Plus try to fix this defense that has a lot of holes in it. I don't think it's the smartest thing to do. And I think they need to focus on the more important things, their offensive line and defensive line. It'd be so fun to have T. Higgins. Don't get me wrong. But without fixing your O-line and defensive line, you're not making it far anyways.
I agree.
I mean, Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this year, went absolutely off, all 3 of them, and they still missed the playoffs. So because their defense was so bad. So I'm sorry. If you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and an amazing quarterback in Joe Burrow who had the most sick numbers and still missed the playoffs, and clearly that's not the route to take for your first option.
Honestly, watching Josh Allen in the playoffs, it made me wonder if I need to reevaluate like my whole quarterback philosophy, right? Josh Allen is always one of the guys that we give as the example, right? You need a Mahomes, you need a Lamar, you need a Josh Allen. Well, the Bills had a Josh Allen and he played awesome. Like he was fantastic and he's been fantastic every single time against Patrick Mahomes. And he still hasn't beaten him in the playoffs. Like, so maybe my thinking on like you have to get one of these alien guys is not, it's just wrong.
This is what I've been trying to tell you. Unless you have Mahomes or Tom Brady, most of the time you're not winning a Super Bowl. So like I feel like everyone's like, well, this guy doesn't have a Super Bowl, so he's not good. Okay, then that means only Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady are good over the last like 2 decades. Like I mean, pretty much every Super Bowl has come down to those 2, right? So it's just so incredibly hard. They're once in a lifetime type quarterbacks. If you can find that, then cool. But I don't think you just keep giving up on guys like Brock Purdy in hopes that you find a Patrick Mahomes, because that's so incredibly hard to do.
I know, but
it's like it's hitting the lottery. That's what it is. It's hitting the lottery. And you also need a coach like Andy Reid, because if Patrick Mahomes goes to the Bears, is he Patrick Mahomes?
No, I don't think so. And I think that the coaching part of it is way more important than people give it credit for. Like way more important. I was talking 11 on our NFL show, and like if you watch the end of that AFC Championship game, the plays that Mahomes makes, and this is not to discredit him, but it's drop back to pass, look.
Everything's so easy.
Yeah,
so easy. Andy
and
Reid makes it so stupid easy.
Yes, that's Andy Reid. That's Andy Reid kicking ass because Andy Reid is the greatest offensive mind of his generation. So it's both. It's both of those things. And Mahomes makes up for any deficiencies that Andy Reid might have. That's
anytime a play breaks down, Mahomes can make it up. But 90% of the plays, Mahomes has it so incredibly easy. And he gets it. I mean, he does it. He executes, right? But it's so incredibly easy. And then there are times where once in a while, the defense does make it hard on Mahomes. They actually get to him, and Mahomes still somehow escapes and makes a great play. So it is both of those things. But I mean, watch the 49ers offense this year. And what Brock Purdy, I mean, nothing was easy. Nothing came easy this year. And watch what Patrick Mahomes had to do this year. Everything is just so easy.
So, and I do think that Brock also in a lesser way does the same thing with Kyle Shanahan. There are a lot of times where Kyle dials it up and Brock's just got to drop back and make the read and make the throw. And he does that. But we've also seen Brock, when things break down, make a good play and bail Kyle Shanahan out of some things. That is good. I think that is a good combination. The problem is Mahomes almost never, when he's bailing his coach out, makes a bad play worse. And we've seen Brock sometimes make a bad play worse. So he's not at that. He doesn't make up for his coach's deficiencies as much as Mahomes makes up for Reid's, but he does do it a little, which is a good combination, in my opinion.
It is. It is. And I think that's the one thing, like with your Josh Allens and your Lamar Jacksons and your Joe Burrow, like, they don't have their Andy Reid, right? If any of those guys were with Andy Reid, they would be the top. They would have all these Super Bowls. And that's just a difference. Now, we can say Brock Purdy does have close to an Andy Reid, right? And Kyle Shanahan. I don't think Shanahan's even up at the tier of Andy Reid's play calling. Because I think he's a lot more stubborn than Andy Reid is. I think Andy Reid's a lot more willing to change things in any given year. He's changing stuff up all the time. And I feel like we really don't see Shanahan changing things up. He has his system, and that's how he wants it. But I don't know where I was going with that. I was just saying, like, Brock does he's in a good system, right? For sure. And I think this is a good match for him. And I think it's worth paying because I think these are a good match. But we need Shanahan to stop being so stubborn and to really try to grow a little bit and try to change up your system just a little bit.
Just go for it on fourth down, dude. That's it. Just do that. Please, for the love of God, just do that. If you're not doing it, you're really missing the boat because that's clearly where the NFL is going. Speaking of Mahomes, just checking the spread really quick. Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes are 1.5-point favorites against the Eagles. We're going to have all of our Super Bowl bets next week. Obviously, we got a little time before the game, so don't worry. We'll still do that. We'll have a bunch of bets for you. We'll probably be able to go a little nuts because they always put out the extra bets for the Super Bowl. But if you had to pick it right now, Michelle, are you taking Kansas City and giving the points?
What's the points at? I can't see.
Kansas City's giving 1.5.
You know they're going to win. So, yeah, I'm taking Kansas City.
The problem is they'll win by 1 point, and then you'll take Kansas City and then you'll lose. That'll be the annoying thing. Harrison Butker will clank home. It'll be a field goal that doinks off the post from like 63 yards away. The Chiefs will win, but they'll win by 1, and so you'll lose the money.
No, what will happen is that the Philly will have the easiest field goal to make of all time to win a Super Bowl. It'll be like a 20-yarder, and they run down the whole clock, and they're cheering, woo! And then somehow the ball, the snap is bad or something.
Right.
And then Mahomes wins. That's what will happen.
Here, you know what? I could definitely, and the Eagles have had field goal issues this year at certain times too. So I don't think you can totally rule that out. Please, if you are going to make the bet, do it with BetUS. And if you don't want to bet on this particular game, they also have a casino if you're interested. So if you like slots or live casino dealers, take advantage of BetUS' amazing 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 or 250% for crypto sign-up bonus up to $5,000. So a couple different options for you there. And thank you once again to BetUS. There was another little interesting part of the Tim Kawakami column because it was a mailbag column. So he kind of jumped around to different things, different topics. And he talked about Robert Saleh. And I thought this was interesting too. And this could just be me with the tinfoil hat on my head. And if you think so, I know you won't hesitate to tell me. That's for sure. But Kawakami writes, quote, "More so than with any other assistant coach, decision of this era. Jed York was personally involved in this move, agreeing to the top of the market salary for Saleh and at some point trying to solidify staffing into the future. Basically, I think the 49ers leaders from York to Kyle Shanahan to John Lynch are trying to set this up for Saleh to stay with the Niners for more than 1 year. At the very least, they'll make it easy for Saleh to be very picky about the place and timing of his next job. And generally, because they need him so much and don't have an instant replacement, Saleh has more influence walking in the door now than he had at any point of his first stint here. So it got me thinking, how long is Robert Saleh's contract for? Because I looked around. I've been asking people in a position to know, what is his deal? Is it a 1-year deal? Is it a 2-year deal? Like, I have no idea. But the fact that Tim said he has more influence here, I thought was really interesting. Like, it's got to be a multi-year deal because otherwise you don't have influence on a 1-year contract. So it's got to be for at least more than 1 year.
It should be. And keep paying him anything he wants, right? To keep him here. That's what I'll never understand. It's not against the cap. You're billionaires. Pay these guys what they want. But then also, I think a big part of this would be, are they winning, right? Because it's hard to leave if you are making deep playoff runs. It's hard to leave then as an assistant coach to go coach a bad team because you're like, I want to be in this winning culture. And Saleh has now been in a really bad culture, right? And a losing team. And I'm sure it was not fun to go to work every day when he was the coach of the Jets. So if he can see the difference between the cultures and you give him this winning culture and they're winning, maybe he will want to stay here longer. I don't think it's out of question to, I mean, we've seen good candidates like Ben Johnson stayed with the Lions longer than he needed to because he wanted to win it all with them. And then this year, I think he kind of finally decided like, it's just not going to happen, I guess. How long can you hold off taking the head coach? But I do think there's many ways that they can talk Saleh into not becoming a head coach after this year.
Is it at all possible that part of the reason that Jed York maybe was willing to dish out significant money to Robert Saleh is because he thinks, hey, you know what? If things don't go our way again next season and I want to make a coaching change, you know what? One way there is to make sure Robert Saleh doesn't leave, make him the head coach. He's had head coaching experience. Obviously, he's well respected. They clearly respect his defensive mind. I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan should be on the hot seat. You know where I stand on that. I think everybody knows at this point where I stand on that. But when Tim says, oh, Saleh's got more influence and Jed York was personally involved in trying to solidify staffing into the future, which was the phrase that he used, I just couldn't help but wonder, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not even the primary reason. Maybe it's just an added bonus. But like, hey, if we did want to make a move, I don't have to freak out that we don't have anybody on staff capable of taking over.
I think you're crazy because this doesn't make any sense. And let me lay it out for you, right? Yep. If Kyle Shanahan's going to be on the hot seat, that means they're losing games, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they have the number one defense and their offense is just so incredibly bad and they're losing games, then sure, maybe Shanahan's on the hot seat and Saleh would be a candidate. But most likely, if they're losing games, their defense is not going to be good, right? If they're going another 6-11 season, their defense probably means it's been pretty bad, maybe as well as their offense. So if Shanahan's going to be on the hot seat, that means Saleh's defense probably is also sucking. So why would he be then considered for a head coaching job?
Fair. But we have seen teams with really good defenses and really bad offenses.
But how can I can't see this offense becoming really, really bad, right? Especially if their defense is good. That just doesn't make sense to me.
You wouldn't think so because, yeah, you would think that they'd be able to piece it together and figure it out. I don't know. When he said that, I was like, more influence, solidify staffing. This is interesting language. And maybe the tinfoil is on my head. Fine. I'm not always right with these instincts. A lot of times I am, but not always. Nobody bats 1,000. So they just piqued my interest. But I do want to know, and I hope they ask him, like, what is your contract? Why are we keeping this stuff secret? Like, how many years is it for? What are you getting paid? Great. Is it top of the market? Is it number one in the league? Like, is it more than Steve Spagnuolo? I want to know. I can't wait to hear from Robert Saleh when he hits the podium. Please, like, somebody ask. Can someone find out? Any of the 49ers beat writers, please.
I wonder if owners are like kind of have like this thing where they say, let's not share this information because then our DCs and OCs will get mad. right?
Yes.
It's kind of
Oh,
like in a normal organization where nobody shares their information. With NFL players, they have to, right? Because they're under the cap and everyone needs to see what you're making. But with these coaches, you don't need to. So they don't want this information getting out. None of the owners do, because then they're going to have to pay their OCs more, their DCs more, and they're going to say, well, this guy's making this and I'm better than him. And that's why I think this information does not get out.
1,000% right. 1,000,000,000,000,000,000% right. Mike Florio used to tell me all the time, like, the owners like the idea that, we keep all the coaching salaries secret, because it hasn't, like, if you look at the way player salaries have risen, coaching salaries have not followed along that same path. It has not matched. The increase in player contracts has not matched a salary increase for coaches. It was basically like Belichick gets a crap load of money because he's Belichick, and everybody else kind of gets the same. And it was just like what it was. There's no coaches union like there is a players union. And so obviously, if that's the case, like, you have less negotiating power, and the owners love that. They don't want to pay anything, like you said. They don't want to pay crazy salaries when it's not part of the cap. They want their labor costs as low as possible. And so a lot of times we don't hear the numbers. Now, I think I saw something that Liam Cohen's deal, when he was going to be the highest paid coordinator, was like up to what Ben Johnson was getting from the Bears, something like that.
Wow.
So I don't know how Saleh's deal would compare with that, but I would like to know the details of the contract. I always like more information as opposed to less information.
And you're not going to get it. Sorry.
Somebody's got to know. Somebody has to know. I'm going to try and find it out. And if I do find it out, I will share it. That promise I can officially make.
So whoever does know is not going to tell you, because you just said you'd tell everybody.
Yeah, you never know. Some things are not as tightly run on the 49ers ship as people like to believe. Let me just say that. There's a lot of people that know certain things. So you never know what could come out.
Well, good luck. Good luck finding that.
Well, why do I get the impression that you don't believe in me at all?
Because I don't. I don't think they want it out, and it's not going to be out.
Thank you very much. All right. I think that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Is there anything else we wanted to get to? It's weird not to do the bets, Michelle. I feel like we're leaving something out. I think that's what it is.
It is very weird, but we will have so many good Super Bowl bets next week. I mean, there's 1 gazillion of them, right? And with 49ers fans having to struggle with the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, we're going to need bets on the line to make this somewhat enjoyable. I mean, that's the only way it's going to be a fun game. I'm personally rooting hard for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, so I'm not as big of a hater as most 49ers fans on the Eagles, but we're going to need some bets out there to make this fun.
It will make a big difference, because then you're like, all right, rooting interest is one thing, but like, we're talking about my wallet here, and we all know we root for green more than any other color. So I completely agree with you. We'll have those for you next week as well. Thank you again, Michelle, for joining me. I want to give a thank you to BetUS also. Again, reminding you, BetUS has a casino. So if you like slots or live casino dealers, take advantage of BetUS. Amazing 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000, or 250% for crypto sign-up bonus up to $5,000. Thank you to BetUS. I always ask you at the end of the show, Michelle, what's going on this weekend? What are your big plans? You got a week off now because there's no game.
Apparently, I'm going to be playing Frisbee golf tomorrow. I just got a text about that.
Frolf?
What?
Frolf.
I've never played before, so this will be my first time, but it shall be fun. And then I always have my espresso date tonight if my stomach can hold up, because I'm having some gallbladder issues. But if my stomach can hold up, it's going to be espresso martini date, and then Frisbee golf tomorrow.
Have you ever played golf? Regular golf?
I've done like the driving range, and I've done like Top Golf, and I've done mini golf. But no, I've never played like actual like 18 holes of golf.
Can you throw a Frisbee?
No.
Okay, well, this is the activity.
I'm very, very bad at throwing a frisbee. I can throw a football like no other. But frisbee, I've not gotten down very well. So I'm not going to be. This might not be my sport, but the people I'll be with, it's a fun group. So I'll have a good time.
Here's what I learned about Michelle when we spent our weekend in Houston hanging out together. She has fun wherever she goes, whatever she's doing. Like, I don't think I've ever seen you have a bad time at anything.
I think we may have been on one of the worst tours of history of life, and it was still a blast. It was still so much fun. I had a great time with you.
Yeah, we went on a walking tour at night when it was 36 degrees, and it was just like there were no
36
other
36 degrees in Texas.
Right, and there were no other people on the tour. So I was like, is this guy abducting us? Like, what is happening here? It was
Talking about
very
dead fetuses down the grates. It was an interesting tour.
I wasn't going to reveal that part of it on the air, but sure. Thanks. That is a real thing that happened. It was a hell of a night.
It was a weird. That's the first day I met you and Aaron, and that was it was fun times.
Yeah, that was day one. Oh, geez. Anyway, enjoy your weekend, everybody. Go watch the Robert Saleh video I did with Johnny Dells. Again, it's on the YouTube channel. You have time now because this show is over. Go and do it. I promise it won't let you down.
It is a great episode, and you're going to learn a lot. And I just really, truly loved it. I can't wait to go finish it. So yes, go listen to that show yesterday. We'll talk to you next week. Bye, y'all.